Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. We repeat what we don't repair, and sometimes what we keep repeating is the very thing that's hurting us. Have you ever stayed in a relationship that you knew wasn't right for you? You felt it in your gut, that quiet discomfort, that ache in your chest every time they ignored your needs, that voice in your head whispering, "This isn't love, not the kind you deserve." And yet, you stayed. Maybe you made excuses. Maybe you told yourself things would change. Maybe you just couldn't imagine life without them. And that's what makes it hard, right? It's not always loud. Sometimes the most toxic love is silent. It creeps in as inconsistency, as emotional distance, as being made to feel like you're too sensitive for simply wanting to be heard. You start second-guessing your needs. You start explaining yourself more than you ever receive understanding. But you stay, because somewhere deep in your body something is familiar. The chaos, the uncertainty, the apology after the silence. It's not healthy, but it feels known. And sometimes, known feels safer than unknown. Even when it's hurting you, it's okay. You're not weak. You're wired. Your brain, as brilliant as it is, isn't designed to make you happy. It's designed to keep you alive, to predict danger, to keep you safe, even if that means locking you into something that slowly chips away at who you are. And here's the part that many people don't talk about. Your brain doesn't differentiate between safe and familiar. To the brain, they're the same. If you've survived it before, your brain assumes you'll survive it again, even if it's killing your spirit in the process. That's the twisted part. Your brain will try to protect you by leading you straight back into the arms of something that once hurt you, because it doesn't know the difference between safety and survival. Your brain operates on neural pathways. Think of them like trails in a forest. The more often you respond to a situation a certain way, by returning to someone toxic or tolerating emotional chaos, the stronger that trail becomes. These patterns live in the limbic system, the part of the brain that handles emotion, memory, and survival instincts. And here's where it gets tricky. During toxic highs, the apologies, the makeups, the rare moments of intimacy, your brain releases dopamine, the feel-good chemical. So even in pain, your brain learns to associate emotional intensity with reward. That dopamine hit becomes addictive. You don't just miss the person, you miss the chemical response they created in you. That's why peace feels flat at first. That's why calm love can feel unfamiliar, even uncomfortable. Your brain isn't broken. It's just detoxing from chaos it once called safety. As Aristotle once said, we are what we repeatedly do. And the brain follows that law relentlessly. It rewires itself based on repetition. So if you've repeated dysfunction, your brain learns to chase it. Not because you want to suffer, but because suffering became your normal. That's why peace can feel unnatural. You might even sabotage it, not because you want to, but because your brain doesn't recognize it. To your nervous system, stability feels like the unknown. And the unknown? That's terrifying. If emotional neglect or inconsistency is what you grew up with, your brain will chase after the same kind of love in adulthood, not because it feels good, but because it feels familiar. It's what you learned love looked like. Love, to you, may have meant working hard for crumbs of affection, apologizing just to keep the peace, lowering your volume, shrinking your needs. So when someone actually treats you kindly, shows up consistently, and meets you with gentleness, you might freeze. You might feel suspicious. You might wonder, is this real? And it's not because something's wrong with the love. It's because your brain hasn't learned how to feel safe in safety. In fact, you may even walk away from healthy love, not because it wasn't right, but because it didn't match the blueprint your brain memorized. A blueprint that said love must be earned, that love means unpredictability, that if it doesn't hurt a little, it must not be real. Still, we cling to what we know, especially when it comes to love. Even when the red flags are blinding, even when we've cried ourselves to sleep one too many times, even when we know, deep down, that we're shrinking just to fit into someone else's version of love. Why do we do this? Why do we keep handing our hearts to the same kind of people, hoping for a different ending? Sometimes it's because we've invested so much, not just time, but memories, emotions, versions of ourselves. You've woven your life with theirs, your routines, your inside jokes, your shared spaces. Leaving feels like tearing away a part of your identity. You think, I've already given them the best of me. Who will I be without this? And the fear of that question alone keeps you in place. But here's the thing, time spent is not proof of a future. You could stay another year, another 5, waiting for them to change. But deep down you know, you're only stretching the pain. The truth is, you're not leaving the good memories behind. You're choosing to stop creating more pain just to keep the past alive. Other times we stay because we still see who they were, not who they are now. You remember how they looked at you in the beginning. The spark, the late night talks, the feeling of being seen. And you keep chasing that version. You tell yourself, maybe if I try harder, they'll come back. You even start to believe that the highs justify the lows. You cling to the 10% of the time they made you feel alive, and ignore the 90% they left you feeling invisible. But you're not in love with them anymore. You're in love with the echo of who they used to be. You're clinging to potential, to an idea. And ideas don't hold you at night. They don't show up, they don't do the work. And what if the problem isn't just them, but the pattern you've been taught to accept? Maybe your idea of love was built on unpredictability. Maybe love always came with anxiety, not comfort. Maybe you had to earn attention growing up. So when someone makes you feel like you're hard to love, your brain says, this feels familiar. You start chasing validation instead of receiving love. You start fixing others instead of being held. And then it becomes a cycle. One you don't even realize you're in until you're deep in it. And the scariest part is, some people will never recognize the cycle. They'll call it passion. They'll call it loyalty. They'll even call it true love. But deep down, they're just trying to survive the same wound on repeat. And then there's the voice, the one that whispers when you're lying alone in bed. You won't find better. No one else will love you like they did. You're too much, too emotional, too broken. That voice, that's not truth. That's conditioning. That's every moment you were made to feel small, by parents, by partners, by life. And it's been replaying in your mind for so long it starts sounding like your own voice. But I promise you, it's not. And the moment you begin to challenge that voice, you take your power back. You start realizing you were never too much. You were simply around people who were too little. You deserve someone who meets you where you are, not someone who keeps you waiting outside their emotional door. And then the hardest part of all, the silence, the stillness after leaving. It's loud. It aches. You miss the comfort of we, even if we was never truly comforting. You miss having someone to text, to share days with, to fill the spaces in your routine. The silence after a breakup isn't just about them. It's about facing yourself. You're not just grieving a person. You're grieving a future that never happened, a dream that kept you going, a hope that got you through. But silence isn't a punishment. It's a pause, a sacred space where your healing finally has room to breathe. So how do you break the cycle? You stop texting. You stop hoping for a new version of the same old story. You block their number, not because you hate them, but because you love yourself enough to stop reopening the wound. You let the withdrawal happen. You ride the waves of grief, the denial, the sadness, the anger. You journal. You sit in uncomfortable stillness. And slowly, your body starts to realize that safety doesn't have to come from someone else. You remember the times they made you feel invisible. You replay the arguments you minimized. You remind yourself why you left. Because healing requires remembering the whole story, not just the highlights. You rewrite the narrative, and this time, you're the main character. Not the rescuer, not the fixer, not the abandoned one waiting to be chosen. You build a new story, one where peace isn't scary, where love is consistent, where your nervous system stops confusing anxiety for attraction. It won't happen overnight. You will miss them. You will want to go back, not because you're weak, but because the brain doesn't let go easily. But the fact that it's hard doesn't mean it's wrong. It means you're healing something deep. It means you're unlearning decades of programming. And that takes courage. One day the silence will feel soft. One day waking up without them will feel like peace. One day you'll see love for what it should have always been. Safe, kind, consistent. You are not your patterns. You are not the people who hurt you. You are not the voice that tells you to settle. You are the awareness breaking the cycle. The bravery that chose peace over familiarity. The healing that begins again every time you don't go back. So if no one has told you lately, you are worthy, you are lovable, you are enough, and you are allowed to leave what feels familiar, even if it's all you've ever known, and step into something greater. You're not starting over. You're stepping into the version of you that no longer settles for survival. The version that doesn't chase closure, because she's already choosing clarity. The version that doesn't beg to be chosen, because she finally chooses herself. This isn't the end. This is the moment you stop being a passenger in your own life and become the author of it. So don't just rebuild, rewire, reclaim, and if no one else tells you this again, let this be the voice that echoes in your healing. You are not too much. You are not too late. You are not broken. You are becoming.